Hello, Final Word fans. Thomas Cole here. We have a new feature starting this week. It's called How Dumb Is That?, where I read and review local articles for your benefit. And don't forget, we're on Channel 17 and Channel 81 in Santa Barbara, and we're on the YouTube sites at Analytics 805 YouTube. Check you there. Thanks. Now, here's an article from the Montecito Journal written by Mr. Brutoco, who is a financial analyst and commentator. It's called Parental Anxiety. It's about how to reduce parents' fear and how to end gun violence in the United States. So look, he starts off with almost every parent of a K through 12 school-age child is really concerned about the incessant school shootings that plague our nation. These have been escalating in violence and complexity over 23 years since the Columbine massacre in '99, and it's past time for a national conversation on gun violence at young people. If you haven't seen the incredible film documentary by Michael Moore, Bowling for Columbine, you need to see it. He talks about the unspeakable tragic school shooting that occurred last month in Oxford, Michigan, when a 15-year-old killed 4 students. And he goes on to say statistics alone are troubling beyond words, with 31 shootings and 65 people injured, 12 people killed this year. These gruesome statistics are compiled by Education Week, which provides a clear accounting of only 1 K through 12 shootings. So no wonder parents are anxious about sending their children out to school or even to a parking lot at the local shopping mall. The situation is out of control. And he goes on to say, we were all rightly shocked and outraged when 20-year-old Adam Lanza killed 26 people, including 20 children, at the Sandy Hook Elementary in Newtown, Connecticut. And that prompted a short-lived debate on better gun regulations, including proposals to make background check systems universal and for new legislation to outlaw the manufacture and sale of automatic weapons, all to no avail. The conversation fizzled out. Mr. Brutoco goes on to say, as tomorrow dawns, parents of school-age children will again face a dilemma of what to do about the fact that their child very well might not come back alive from school. Okay. Well, listen, in the first place, let's just put it this way. Regarding Mr. Brutoco's article on gun violence, Greed Knows No Boundaries, his basic premise is that gun manufacturers, the NRA, and President Donald Trump are the main reasons for school shootings. But the problem is Mr. B is all wrong. In the first place, he fails to mention that of 42,000 gun deaths this year, 31,150 are suicides. The rest are ghetto violence, and tragically, the last 12 deaths this year are school shootings by crazy people. Now, of course, 12 is too many people, but those 12 school shooting deaths a year is a death rate of 0.000004 from the general population of 300 million. Now, the overall death rate for teenagers from 12 to 19 years old, tragically, is 16,375 a year. And that's a death rate of about 0.68 per year of our population of 300 million. Now, mostly of this 16,000 yearly teenage deaths, mostly are from car accidents, 35%, and other accidents and suicides. So parents do have a lot to fear with their teenagers, but gun violence is at the bottom of the list, well below lightning strikes. Not that we should do nothing about the problem. Mr. Brutoco inaccurately cites 4 major school shootings as evidence that more rules are needed to stop gun owners and the NRA from causing school children deaths. Now, I'll go back to the article, read a little more from Mr. Brutoco. He goes on to say, our collective memories were also stirred by the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas School in Parkland, Florida, when another teenager, 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz, used his AR-15 assault rifle, meant only for military purposes, to kill 17 students and staff in 2018. That slaughter raised media eyebrows as it surpassed even the Columbine shooting in number of deaths. Remarkably, he says, even then, President Trump at the time, recipient of more than 30 million in NRA contributions, in a nationwide speech observed that no child, no teacher should ever be in danger in an American school. Well, that sounds good. Yet the slaughter of innocent continues. Mr. Brutoco goes on to say, as of December 13th, 42,000 Americans have died from guns in 2021. This rate is 122 a day. We Americans have an inherently violent culture. And let's see. Perhaps we all need to follow advice of Watergate hearings, which admonished us to follow the money to understand what Nixon did that cost him the presidency. I don't know where he's going with this. The money here is profits gun manufacturers are making by stirring up our love of firearms and our unwillingness to take even modest steps to reduce gun deaths. Everyone still reading this column is aware of these incredibly grim statistics, so why repeat them here? Well, because an informed public realizes that gun sales are less about the Second Amendment than they are about the gun lobby's profits. And they will begin to look for even small steps to bring sanity to our national gun policies. Okay, let's just take a second here and look at this. He mentions, Mr. Brutoco, he mentions the Newtown, Connecticut shooting. But look, this is where a 20-year-old Adam Lanza, he was a very crazy person on drugs and under psychiatric care. And his mother was probably worse because she bought Adam an AR type 15 rifle and took him to training and shooting ranges, knowing that her son was completely mental and dangerous and violent. She was going to have him committed, and he overheard about this. And so Adam got the rifle out of the safe, he killed his mother, and went on the Newtown school rampage. So it's a little different than the NRA selling a person a rifle and having them just decide to go shoot people. His mother bought him the damn rifle, knowing that her son was nuts. Okay, and he killed her just before he went out and finished his idiotic rampage. And let's talk about the Parkland, Florida high school shooting. In this shooting here, we do have a very crazy young person, Nicholas Cruz, and he had been kicked out of his high school for scaring people and acting crazy. The police had visited Nicholas's home 30 times for domestic violence against his grandmother, who he lived with, and other people in the neighborhood. And yet, get this, because of an Obama executive order, no police record was filed against Cruz. The program was supposed to keep young minorities out of prison by hiding their delinquent crime records from police, which also meant that when this nut Cruz turned 18, there was nothing showing when the background check was completed. So that shows a different picture than the Mr. Brutoco is presenting here. Let's go back to Brutoco for another second here. Brutoco goes on to mention this attack on Congressman Gabby Giffords, where 19 people were shot, resulting in 6 deaths, including a federal judge and a 9-year-old girl. No wonder parents are anxious about sending their children off to school or even to the parking lot. The situation is out of control. Well, let's go to the Gabby Giffords shooting and look at a couple of facts, because it wasn't just some guy who was working for the NRA who decided, I've got to kill a Congress lady. It's not the case at all. In that particular instance, let's go to this. In the attack on Congressman Gabby Giffords, the perp was another crazy person, this Jared Loeffner. He'd been kicked out of a local college for acting crazy, scaring people, kicked out of his several part-time jobs for the same problem. No one filed a report on this guy, so that when he was going to apply to get a firearm, his record was clean. There was nothing showing that he was a danger or scary or crazy. And so what we're seeing here is not just what the media and what Mr. Brutoco is stating. It's just out of control. No, what's out of control is that these people are crazy, and there's regulations to prevent them from getting weapons, but they don't function if we don't get records of the crazy person in the system. Now let's go one last time here. Let's go to the Columbine shooting. In this shooting, the two student perps were somewhat crazy again. They were on Prozac and were under psychiatric care. Now, even filmmaker Michael Moore, whom Brutoco mentions, Michael Moore said in his film, Bowling for Columbine, quote, "That's why I believe there should be an investigation in terms of what prescribed pharmaceuticals these kids were on." Now, that's from Michael Moore. And now get this. The parents of one of the Columbine shooters, before the thing happened, the parents called the police on their son after finding this violent rant on his computer. Here, I'll read it to you. This is from one of the Columbine shooters before the shooting. And the police saw this. He says, "I will rig up explosives all over town and detonate each of them at will after I mow down a whole effing area full of you snotty ass rich mother effing high-strung godlike attitude having worthless pieces of shit whores. I don't care if I live or die in the shootout. All I want to do is kill and injure as many pricks as I can, especially a few people like Brooks Brown." Now, the police saw this, the parents saw this, and the police did nothing. The parents did nothing. The school wasn't contacted. Nothing was done. Let's get to the point here. Look at this common theme. We have crazy young people who are on prescription drugs, who are coddled by parents or coddled by the police and government systems. And because of that, they are able to pass background tests and get themselves armed up. Or in the Columbine case, they simply steal the weapons from their parents or friends who also knew that these kids were nuts, okay? And let's face it, people are going to schools or theaters or anywhere and shoot up civilians or cops or anything. Those are not sane people. These are not just average Joes who just get angry. If you're a mass murderer, you are by definition insane. And so the argument that Brutoco makes that firearm sales are out of control, it's a free-for-all with the NRA selling Tech 9 to school kids for big profits, that's a complete lie, okay? Because there is no gun show exception. All weapons and ammunition transactions everywhere, anywhere, anytime require an FFL dealer, that's Federal Firearms License, to run a federal and state background check. Believe me, this is true. I have actually been to a gun show. It's true. And you can't just walk out with anything you want. It's just the same wherever you go in California or in Arizona. I've checked there as well. Every carry permit, for instance, involves multiple layers of federal and state data checks. And carry, that means concealed carry. It means you can have a loaded weapon on you, concealed. You're walking around, you're able to defend yourself or others should a psychopath show up. So the point is, we are very controlled already. And what's really needed is it's the crazy people who need controlling. And there are means to do this right now. And those means are in place. Now, clearly, if parents, schools, and police turned over records of mentally unstable or violent young people, turn that information into the required databases, that would go far in preventing these terrible tragedies. And the NRA, for instance, has great outreach and safety programs. That if, for instance, Alec Baldwin had taken any of these programs from the NRA, he would know that you never ever point any weapon, fake or real, loaded or unloaded, at any person, anytime. But of course, Alec Baldwin hates the NRA, along with Michael Moore, and NRA has actually got great programs to help gun safety. But the NRA cannot prevent crazy people from getting into the system and getting weapons if those records of these nutty people do not get placed into the system. Okay, and finally, blaming the NRA, it's dumb, because the NRA represents and are funded by America's legal gun owners to protect our Second Amendment. And that right is enshrined in our Constitution by our founders. It protects us from overreaching government, and it guarantees our legal right to self-defense. Now, compare how protesters are treated in Europe and Australia lately, and you can see the difference. Protesters there are hosed down with water cannons. They're shot with rubber bullets, and they're clubbed into submission. Now, we in the USA are not yet treated like animals, and the Second Amendment probably has a lot to do with that. Even so, our jobs, our economy, and our freedoms are being trampled in this pandemic lockdown. And the 2020 summer of riots has created a whole new group of legal gun owners. And now, shall we blame the government for not stopping violent riots, for this new burst of gun ownership? That's a question. Second Amendment proponents are loath to give up our legal and constitutionally guaranteed right to self-defense and our defense against a tyrannical government if need be. Now, keep in mind, the first step of all the world's tyrannies is always gun confiscation. From 1933 Germany to 1954 Mao to 1946 Stalin, the civilian populations were all completely disarmed. To protect the children is what they always said. And so Mr. Brutoco and other Second Amendment haters unwittingly continue this tradition. So let's just back up for a minute and look at the legal gun owners and the NRA and their fight to protect gun rights, to make gun ownership safe and legal, and to remove crazy people from the list. Put the people that are nuts, that are violent, that have records, whether they're under 18 or not, put them in the database. That's what we want. And I think that'd be a great idea. So there you have it. How dumb is that?